when government people tell to me or ask me, are you going to vote for these things or against these things, I can point to a dozen phone calls, emails, letters that say, Representative Spiegelman, don't deprive me of my rights. And I can turn to the governor's people and say, how dare you tell me to go against the will of my voters? How dare you? And so those emails, those phone calls, they are extremely, extremely important. If you send them, it doesn't mean we're going to win. If you don't send them, I can guarantee you we're going to lose.
Sure.
I'm sorry? Well, they have to write the laws first. I have been told that we will begin to see the first part of this package by the end of this month. We then, for those of you who don't know the session, we then break for joint finance in February. It will not be on the floor for serious debate until March. Now, in this state, and I like to brag to some of my friends out of state, in this state, we have a very open government. You can come and you can sit in on session. You can come and you can sit in on committee hearings. You can come and make your voice heard directly to the people who will be voting. You can hear from their lips how they feel about these issues. So in addition to those letters and phone calls, I strongly encourage you, if you have some time, and I know not everybody does, if you have some time, sit in on a meeting, figure out where these different bills, what committees they're going to go to.
Where's that scheduled? Or where's that posted as to what?
I will keep everybody informed when the laws come out of where they are going. Usually you can look it up online, but I will keep people informed as much as possible. I imagine most of these bills will go to one of two places: the Public Safety Committee, of which unfortunately I'm not a member, or the Judiciary Committee, of which I am. Yes, sir. It's very possible. It's very possible. The more you demand they don't, the more you say that there will be ramifications if they do. You know?
I have a question.
Sure.
I know sometimes trying to get votes is like marketing and it's all about business. It is.
Yeah.
Because why else would a politician say, well, most of my voters want this?
Mhm.
You swore an oath.
Yeah.
If that voter is anti-gun, why do they live in the land that's free? Why?
Because what they will tell you is, and I'm not going to speak for all of them, what they will tell you is that they swore an oath to upheld the Constitution as their voters see fit.
That's a slippery slope that we can't be on.
No kidding.
Right.
No kidding.
And
That's why I'm
that's
standing here.
unacceptable.
I mean, my views on the subject should be fairly clear. I'm not going to vote against the rights of gun owners. Now, I'm going to do my best, and I have some ideas in that regard of how to keep guns out of the hands of the wrong people and how to keep guns in the hands of the right people. We'll see. I'm a freshman, but that doesn't mean I'm quiet. I was not elected by the people who voted for me to be a quiet observer. Yes, ma'am.
What kinds of ideas keep your job going?
Expanded background checks, National Mental Health Registry. Here's the thing. If we are really serious about this issue, we need to look at what caused these horrible massacres. We need to look at that and say, okay, what would have stopped the Virginia Tech shooter? A man who was labeled as a danger to himself or others. Why was he then able to buy a firearm?
He stole it from his mother, didn't he?
No, that's Connecticut. I'm going all the way back to Virginia Tech.
I don't know, the Zoloft, the Paxil, what was it?
Well, here's the thing. The counselor from which he was seeking help at the school said he is a danger to himself and others. So what he did was, well, then I'm just not going to go back to you. And he went and purchased firearms. Tell me, is that not the wrong person? Why was this not reported? Why was there not a system in place? The NRA has been calling for that for years. For years, they've been calling for that, and they've encountered resistance. Well, now is the time to say there are ways to write this so as not to deprive people who have mental health conditions for which they wouldn't be a danger to themselves. Listen, you can categorize arachnophobia as a fiscal condition. Does that mean you shouldn't be allowed to buy a firearm because you're afraid of spiders? No, of course not. Well, exactly. But even then, even then, for me it's centipedes. So but does that mean I'm in danger of myself and others? No, I'm in danger of centipedes. It's millipedes? Okay. Now we're all going to start sharing. Careful, that might get you on a list now. So, sure.
We're already on that list. I know it right.
Right. Paint should be an assault weapon, and carry be an assault weapon. But the problem is it doesn't define the firearm.
Right.
Action with that firearm defines the firearm. Go after the criminals, do what you got to do. But my weapons are for defense.
Yeah.
Protection of my family and my liberty.
Shouldn't that make it a
And you
defense
guys,
in
when I say you, when I say you,
I understand.
the establishment that you represent all too often defines our weapon as assault. That's not the purpose.
I was in conversation with a legislator the other day who said, well, just look at it. It's AR-15, assault rifle 15.
Armalite rifle.
And then the other one, I can tell people who are new to this issue when all of a sudden all of these rifles are now called Bushmasters. I'm not sure Bushmaster really appreciates that kind of press, although I'm sure their business is doing quite well right now. But again, it just shows you. I told this directly to one of the governor's staff. Listen, gun laws are often written by people who don't own guns. It's like creating traffic laws by people who don't have a driver's license. I asked, please include me in the writings of these laws. At least then they can make sense. Doesn't mean I'm going to vote for them, but at least then they're going to make sense.
Well,
I haven't gotten a phone call back.
Something else to add on to that. I don't understand why a vehicle that can go 120 miles an hour is not considered an assault vehicle. I mean, if that's the case, then why don't you govern every vehicle that can't go over the posted speed limit?
Well,
that would make much more sense because more people are killing vehicles than they are with weapons.
far more. I asked my staff to look up murder rates in Delaware by weapon. From 2007 to 2011, in the state of Delaware, there were a total of, combined, all 5 years, 2 deaths in the state of Delaware by rifles of any style, shape, caliber, or whatever. 2. And for this, they're trying to deprive us of an entire category of rifle.
Unacceptable.
It's unacceptable. Total of 7 deaths by shotguns. If you remove the city of Wilmington from the equation, handgun deaths go down to about the same level. And yet, over 100 deaths last year from driving accidents. How many of those by drunk driving? Is this really safe? I mean, tell me, are you really trying to improve public safety, or you just don't like people who own guns? Is it really that you're trying to? I'm sorry?
Criminals don't follow law.
Precisely.
We do.
Right.
I've got a question.
Why is trying to commit the felony making for themselves?
Considering the wording of the Second Amendment anyway, are any of the people that are actually making the law considering the wording of it, like infringing? It means not to limit our rights to search guns or anything.
I can tell you, flat out that the people writing these laws, some of them are gun owners. However, a lot of times what happens is, despite being gun owners, the emotional shouting of the anti-gun movement is louder than the logic of the pro-gun movement. The fact is, the governor and those who are pushing this anti-gun agenda have no reason to take their time. They have no reason to take their time. They're going to want this as fast as possible because, and it's terrible to say, because the farther away they get from the tragic events of December, the harder it's going to be to pass laws that require emotional reaction.
Why is the governor against armed guards in schools like the NRA is for? He seems to be adamantly against them. I saw him on PBS. He's head of the governor's council, and he just ridiculed the idea.
Yes. I'm not going to speak for the governor in that one. I haven't spoken to him. I haven't spoken to any of his staff about it. But I will tell you this. A lot of those on the other side of the aisle from me who are pushing the anti-gun agenda do not seem to want any involvement in studies that would ask how to improve school safety.
What about their officers that are already there? There are.
Yeah. I remember that, that there was an armed guard in Smyrna High when I was there, because I was in high school after the tragic events of Columbine. I was in high school at the time.
I have a
And there were
follow-up question.
changes.
Talking about school safety.
Mhm.
Okay, we've got fire safety
Yeah.
is underneath the Delaware State Fire Marshal.
Yes.
They have rules and regulations about safety systems for fires.
Yes.
You've got sprinklers. There's all sorts of things mandated.
Yes.
Shouldn't we have some sort of standard statewide
Yes.
for security at schools?
Yes.
I mean, look at these incidents. It started way back in Colorado at Columbine.
Yeah.
We don't have the CCTV footage. What if there was multiple people involved? Wouldn't they want to be able to identify this?
Yeah.
What if a 10-man team of Al Qaeda terrorists come across the border and wipe out a school?
The other
How
thing-
come there's no cameras? How come we don't see any video footage?
The other thing that the governor is asking for, and this was part of the meeting, the governor originally asked for every single school in the state to have some sort of plan in that regard, in what they need, and that kind of idea, a school plan for the awful event of an intruder within 5 years. He is expanding that. He now wants it in 2, and he will provide the funding early to make it 2. And he's removing it from the principals of the school, and he's placing that under the Department of Homeland Security.
Oh, Jesus.
So 2 years